New York Yankees second half betting tips. Marco, we're looking at the Yankees because it's the most popular team in baseball, ton of public action. I always think there's a great opportunity to selectively fade this team. What should bettors be looking at in the second half of the 2011 season?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. There's built-in value with the Yankees just right from the start.
Building value.
Going against them. Doesn't matter what the situation is. The Yankees are always going to be priced higher than they should be just because Vegas knows where the money's coming. And whenever it's the weekend and there's TV games and more people are here like in Vegas, going to the sports books, the traffic's busier, always going to be value. Now, what I found is a unique situation here with the Yankees. And this is mind-boggling this year. And you're going to ask me why, and I'm going to tell you, I don't have an answer for it. But the Yankees are an average team at night. They're 4 games under 500 this year, 27-31. We're taping on July 15th. That's 4 games under 500. They're nothing special. But the Yankees, they're a favorite in almost all of their games. So if you'd have been betting against the Yankees all year at night, you've got a nice profit. Now you flip this around. This is mind-boggling. The Yankees are 26-5 in day games this year.
Now that is, it's one thing to have a dichotomy. That's a massive dichotomy. But you bring up an interesting point. I don't know why you're saying. I don't know why. But I tell you this, I know as a trend guy, or at least a guy that considers trends, I'm certainly not a trend guy, is that if you can logically explain a trend, I think you can get by with less volume, less sample size. Mm-hmm. If a trend is unexplainable, you need more sample size. Now, if you told me for whatever reason that there was some trend that was as illogical as anything, but it was like 5,000 winners and 2,000 losers, a massive sample size for like a league-wide trend, I would bet that. I don't care if it was left-handed, picking their nose, east of the Mississippi stuff, because the sample size is so big. Now, you give me a trend that makes a huge amount of sense to me, I'll back it if it's 12-3. Though statistically, I'm betting more the logic of it than I am the 12-3. The 12-3 just helps a little bit. So you're saying that you don't understand the logic. I don't understand the logic. But man, the numbers may or may not be significant. But I tell you this: that 26-5 is a real eyebrow raiser.
Absolutely. And
now, are you considering this when you're handicapping the Yankees?
Absolutely. I'm looking. Obviously, I'm not going to just blindly take the Yankees in the day games because, as we talk, the Yankees are always going to be a favorite. So you're going to have to win a very high.
Yeah, I'd be more inclined to fade them at night.
Exactly, because that's where the value is at. People look at that winning record. And again, this is the biggest tip that I can give people when you're breaking down handicapping baseball is you've got to go beyond the raw numbers that you just see in the paper. Don't just look at, this is a perfect example. If you just looked at the standings, you would look and see the Yankees are 53-36. They're playing .596 baseball. But we went further and broke it down, and you're finding where there's an edge. So now by bucking the Yankees at night games, especially on the road, you're going to get, you might have a home team as a small dog. You're getting value. That's what you're looking for. A lot of times people will look and say, okay, a team's in their last 6 games, their starting pitching staff, they've held the opponents to 2 runs or less in 5 straight games. That's impressive. But let's go a step further. Who did they play? If they're playing a team like San Diego or Seattle, that's what they average is 1 or 2 runs a game. They can't hit. That's not a significant stat. But if you have a pitching staff that's on a 5-game streak and they've held their opponents to 2 runs or less, and they're playing the Yankees and the Red Sox that score a lot of runs, that makes that raw number bigger. And you've got to just can't look at the newspaper at raw stats.
Something else you said that I thought was interesting, and it's funny because we've been talking about this on the podcast too, is a given sport has a certain public square makeup. So baseball is going to be a more, public sharp makeup or square sharp, however you want to say it. Is baseball in general has more sharp action than the NFL, let's say, by percentage. But there's two things that vary throughout the season. One is there's an ebb and a flow to the sharpness throughout the season. So in baseball, in the first couple weeks, you get more public action, less sharp action relatively because people get excited. Then come May and mid-June, I think you get less public action because a couple weeks have gone by. Maybe some people lost. They quit playing. There's NBA going on. Then when the NBA's over, there's a little bit of lull. People take a little break, but then around the All-Star break and after, and VR was talking about it on the podcast, he said the weekend, the Saturday and Sunday before the All-Star break were some of the biggest days all year for volume. People getting excited because they're jonesing for action. Mm-hmm. Now, once football starts, especially NFL, all of a sudden it becomes almost, not only sharp, but a lot more sharp relatively. Right. So you get the ebb and flow throughout the season, which you have to deal with that when you look at reading the bet percents and the different way the market's flowing. But you make a really interesting point. You get an ebb and flow throughout the week also, and it's simple. The weekend, there's more public action. On Wednesday night or the weeknights, there's less public action. Right. And if you're trying to read the line moves and stuff, or you're trying to understand why a line is somewhere because it doesn't make sense to you, and you're saying, is this just because the squares don't get it, or is this a trap? Understanding how much public action, I think, is very valuable.
Speaking on ebb and flow, another thing for people that they don't look at with pitchers, starting pitchers, and this is general for any team, you can look at this. I look at starting pitchers much the same way I handicap horses. I look at a starting pitcher. A horse goes in and out of what they call form. Pitchers will do that too, but you have big name pitchers that automatically have built-in prices to them, because the public, they want the Doc Holliday's, they want Cliff Lee, all the big name pitchers. But these guys are not machines. They don't go out there and throw dominant games every single start. What I like to look at with starting pitchers is I look at every start like I would do reading the racing form, and you see how they come in and out. And one of the great indicators is if you see a guy that's about to go out of form, what I like to see is if he's been going 6-7 innings every start and he's averaging 6 or 7 strikeouts, and then all of a sudden his next start you see him, he only has like 1 or 2 strikeouts, that means he didn't have his best stuff in that game. He wasn't fooling the hitters. So there's more likelihood that next start is going to be a continued regression out of form. The same can be from somebody that was struggling, because it's all about finding value. You have a pitcher that's been struggling, and he's only had those 2 or 3 strikeouts, maybe gives up 7, 8 hits a game, but now you see a start where he gives up only 6 hits, and all of a sudden his strikeouts went up to 6 or 7. That guy's ready to come back in form, but the market is not ready to adjust to him coming back in form. That's where you find live dogs with pitchers.
Which makes a good point, is once the public understands something is a fact, there's no value acknowledging that fact. If you can find, through looking one level deeper in the stats, precursors, leading indicators to them performing better in the next start or two, you offer value. Now, just a specific question away from the Yankees. How, with Satchel Paige, how did you handicap him? And anything in hindsight that we can learn from that?
I tried, but my dad couldn't get me in at 3 into the ball game to watch Satchel. So sorry.
All right, so let's recap on the Yankees. In general, they're a very public team. That means the value is going to be going against them. In general, you don't blindly go against them. But here specifically, we see a shocking stat. They're under 500 at night, 26-5 during the day. So if you're looking to fade at night seems to offer some value. The question is that statistically significant? Because we can't explain it.
Absolutely.
Any closing thoughts?
Nope, that's it.
All right, guys, we've done 3 videos right at the midpoint after the All-Star break, breaking down the Pirates, breaking down just now the Yankees, and general handicapping tips. You can get all of those at pregame.tv.